Sure. I started in 2004 when I wrote a book called Fit Over 40. And at the time, I was just a guy interested in weight loss and nutrition and fitness. And I had lost 70 pounds, and I had gone through a heart attack at a young age in my 30s. And I just decided to write a book about that, but also 52 other people that were between the ages of 40 and 80. And I didn't have any knowledge at all about what was involved in digital marketing, especially copywriting, none at all. In fact, Tom Venuto was my partner at the time. I just got lucky and met Tom, and he really liked the project. He liked what I was doing, liked the message, and said, I'll handle the marketing. And that was my first exposure when I saw what was going on. It was crazy. I mean, yeah, so a heart attack is not something you wish on your worst enemy, at least most of them. The heart attack in my 30s changed my life pretty radically because it was a severe, major heart attack. And there are minor heart attacks that you don't even notice, supposedly. I've never experienced one of those, but this one was one of those that wake you up at 4 in the morning with an elephant sitting on your chest. And if my girlfriend at the time had not been with me, I would be dead. And they had to care flight me to a helicopter, by helicopter to a hospital, because there wasn't a hospital. We weren't that far away from a hospital, but there wasn't a hospital set up to do an emergency cath at the time, or an angiogram, I believe it was. But at any rate, they had to fly me there. And I was being, at 4:30 in the morning, being shoved into a helicopter that felt like a coffin, because it's like your nose is like this. It's right up against the metal, cold metal, and because they can't have you move, and it just intense pain, even though the morphine drip was going, and just thinking to myself at the time, like, man, what am I doing with my life? Not that I was like wasting my life away or anything, but I just wasn't fulfilled in ways that were very, very profoundly important to me, and I just felt this profound sense of like, man, there's loss here. There's loss here if I die so early. I haven't done a lot of things I wanted to do, and some of this has been brought on by my own behaviors. I mean, some of it's genetic, true, but a lot of it was my own behavior. So it just kind of said, if I get out of this, I'm gonna change my ways and go about things a lot differently than I've been doing. And I basically, a lot of entrepreneurs, if anyone's watching this, it's an entrepreneur or wants to be, a lot of entrepreneurs use food as a drug, and I was one of those. Because we're working insane hours, and I'd gotten away from what I knew. I was an athlete in college and gotten away from weight training and diet and all the things I knew worked, and just dove into fast food and eating like a trash can, basically. And that certainly accelerated the heart disease. And the big takeaway for me was not just, okay, I've got this disease and start taking a bunch of drugs and deal with it that way. It was, what can I do to not only change the course of my life in this area and do what I have to do physically, dietarily, et cetera, but also how can I impact others in the process? So that became kind of the mission. I started studying heart issues. I've talked to cardiologists that say, as much about this stuff as a lot of, first-year medical graduates or something, but because I just studied the hell out of it and wanted to know, what's the data say, what are the best data on these conditions, and how do I apply it to my life? Like, how do I make this work? Because if the best data were showing, oh, you need to eat rabbit food all day long, then I knew I was going to be pretty much out of luck. So because I wasn't going to do that. So some of it was kind of an entrepreneurial spirit toward health and toward how I was going to handle things, and so I went in a very non-conventional way, and it's worked out pretty well. I mean, there's still bumps in the road for sure, but it's worked out pretty well, and that led me to write my first 3 books, and they were all in the fitness space. And yeah, I wasn't even into internet marketing until the second book, and the first book was just sold me on the fact that this was a real thing. I couldn't believe that this much revenue came from an ebook that I'd written over a period of 6 months and put a lot of work into it, but a ton of work into it. But the first time I read the copy that Tom wrote for the sales page, I was like, who the hell is this guy, and can I meet him? It was the shock of seeing sales copy, direct response for the first time. Not that anything was a lie. It was everything was just, as sales copy does. Sales copy exaggerates where it wants to, and it elaborates where it wants to, and has this great ebb and flow of energy. And I wasn't used to reading my story like that at all. And so I was like, I can't believe anyone will read 6,000 words. I just can't believe it. No one's going to do this, right? And of course, that's all wrong, and everybody was proven right in the end. So, yeah, but then I tried to do it on my own, and it was kind of a joke. So I can write a book, I could write poetry, but I couldn't write a sales letter to save my life. And just that really gave me an appreciation for the skill. And yeah, to marry the two things, to marry the pursuit of health and getting that message out to as many people as possible. I never in a million years thought I'd be sitting here as a copywriter and a guy that invented the VSL. Did not start off that way at all. It started off a guy not wanting to die of a heart attack. I spent the next, 6 years of my life answering a lot of emails, and a lot of people saying, this changed my life, this gives me hope. And the first edition of the book, I had edited out the heart attack stuff. I was too afraid to do it. I was too afraid to mention it because, here I am barely 40 years old, and I'm writing a book on fitness over 40, and I didn't want to, at the time, I just didn't have the mental confidence to say, yeah, here's exactly what happened. And so I just said I had dealt with serious health issues, and I didn't go into detail. In the reprint of the book, I was like, there's no way I'm going to do that. And so we're actually working on another one right now where it goes into a much more elongated story. Now, in other books I talk about it, but the point is that I would talk about it on a blog, or I'd talk about it on an interview, and people would reach out and say, wow, this really helped change my life. And I had a guy lose over 100 pounds, had a guy, that he was on the brink of suicide. And just things that you don't really, I was not well equipped to answer those kinds of emails, despite being relatively intelligent and relatively well spoken. I'm certainly not, I can wax philosophic about the natures of how diet prevents you from killing yourself. But I can say to that person, and did say to that person, I've been exactly where you are. I've had those thoughts. I understand it. The nutrition changes our biochemistry in our brain in a way that is, it's just, yeah, those things that can happen. And so when somebody says, thank you, you're the reason I'm still alive, I always deflect that, and always will, because no, whoever saying that is the reason that you're still alive. If something I said and something somebody else said made a difference in that, that's awesome, but it comes down to the individual always. And that's one of the big things I talk about is, not to sound like Tony Robbins, but personal power is a pretty important thing, and personal responsibility even more so. Big time, because I studied nutrition in college for exactly 6 weeks. And granted, I went back, and you can get what's called CCN, and you can do that through mail, and did all that stuff. But I didn't have any formal education in nutrition, none whatsoever in exercise science. And so my hesitation was massive. That's why I didn't write a book for the first several years after that happened. But yeah, and then I started reading other people's stuff. And when I met Tom has more consonants behind his name than I can count. But even he says, well, yeah, but I'm not an MD. I'm not a PhD in biomechanics or a PhD in nutrition. He didn't need to be. He's just well educated, and so along the way, I took up the mantra of you don't need to be an expert, you need to be an enthusiast, but a really well-read enthusiast, an open-minded enthusiast, because I can present ideas that a doctor can't do. For example, my doctor and I, my personal physician and I, are working on many projects together, and he can't say certain things that I can say. I can say a lot that he can't say without losing his license or without getting under a lot of scrutiny. And he said basically it's like we're under so much more scrutiny than just writers or people that have an interest in something. So, and plus I can take it from where a doctor has a hard time saying the following sentence. Look, don't just follow me as blindly as an expert. I'm more of an enthusiast. I'm someone that's very well read in this, but I could be wrong. So you need to try this for yourself. Well, doctors, if they say I could be wrong, they can lose a lot of patients that way, right? Because people want that degree of certainty. So coming at it from like, here's what I've seen, and here's what 52 other people were doing, at the time, speaking specifically of my first book, my other books were all written just by me, or containing stuff that were just my ideas. But yeah, these are ideas that are working, that work for me. There are other people who do something different. You need to find what works for yourself. You know, like I'm not trying to get people to, you know, to be a carnivore or to, you know, go on a certain training protocol or whatever. Just saying, hey, here's what I'm doing and here's what's working and here's what's not working. So having the no credentials allows me to have a lot more of a canvas to paint on, and allows me to not think in a certain, well, no credentials except for the CCN, but allows me to, you know, go down a road that opens the mind a little bit more. Because when I was studying for that, it was a long time ago, the data that we were looking over at the time, a lot of the data has changed. Because, you know, but there are people that got their CCN in 2004 that are still, or their nutrition degree or their PhD and whatever, are still going off of data from 2004, you know, or just they haven't kept up with new emergent stuff. So doing it this way has allowed me to stay a little bit, hopefully more open-minded, and I can be really dogmatic at times when I'm pretty convinced of something, and I don't have to worry about, you know, being sued for it, you know, because I'm just a guy writing, you know, just a normal dude. It's like bigger for me, even bigger than I don't have an MD, PhD, you know, 27 consonants behind my name when I wrote any of my fitness books. Much bigger for me was that, well, I'm not like, you know, I'm not Mr. Olympia. I've still got plenty of, you know, physical challenges. I still have, like, you know, I'm not, I may be, you know, more fit compared to the average person, but less fit compared to some other people. And you always compare yourself to other people. You can't help but compare yourself. One of my good friends is one of the most famous fitness models in the world, Clark Bartram. And, you know, anyone comparing themselves against Clark is going to lose. They're going to lose that battle really quickly because he's, you know, not only is he a genetic freak, I mean, which is, I say that lovingly because he knows he knows what I mean by that, but he's also put in all the work. He's miles above everybody else. So a lot of people might like compare, like you as a marketer, you as wanting to go into writing a book or producing a video or whatever it may be. It could be on anything, on dog training, on cooking, on whatever, and you're going, oh, but I'm not Gordon Ramsay, or I'm not, you know, the dog whisperer or whatever, if he's still around. Is he even still around? I don't know. But whatever the case may be. Or the other thing that I hear people say is, yeah, well, there's already tons of books on that. There's already tons of people talking about weight loss. Yeah, there's a weight loss book written every 6 seconds probably, but it didn't matter. Because if I would have used that excuse, I never would be where I am right now. Because it just wouldn't have ever happened. So it's true there was a weight loss book written every 6 seconds. I thought I had a couple of unique things to say about it. But you just need to have a perspective that you think is helpful and a voice that you think people can hear. So if you have a perspective that's helpful, that you believe in, and it's well studied on your behalf, and you're not crossing any legal lines or ethical lines, and you have a story that people can resonate with, that you feel like I can reach somebody where, you know, Dr. Oz or, you know, the dog whisperer or whomever may not be able to reach because they're up here. They're on a different level, and so people might view me a little bit more down to earth, you know what I'm saying? So that holds so many people back from creating their own products, that they're wrapped up in the fact that there's so many other products out there doing that, and these guys or these girls have, you know, multiple degrees behind their names, but also I'm not perfect. In fact, you know, personally, I'm the furthest thing from it. So because I don't, you know, look or feel or act or behave in a certain way, that I don't feel like I'm good enough to get the message out there. And that was as much of a holdback for me as the you know, consonants behind my name, because you have to come to grips with saying, yeah, I'm not. You know, you're not going to, you know, airbrush yourself to be perfection, you know, and all that stuff. You're not going to claim to be perfect. That realism needs to come out in a message for most of us. Now, there's some people out there watching this that really are the very, very best in the world at what they do, and they can afford to say, yeah, I totally kick ass in this. I'm like, yeah, I'm the world's best at this. I mean, I can say that in one regard as far as copywriting goes, as far as video sales letters. I created something, and people often consider me one of the best at it. I look at other people all the time and go, I wish I wrote as well as he did. But my point is that you can say you can get by with that in this position. I couldn't get by with it at all in fitness and nutrition, and I still can't, and I never will. And so if you think that if that's what's holding you back, take a modesty pill, because it's important to go in there with a modest framework and go, yeah, I'm not the best, I'm not the this, I'm not the this, but I do have a unique message, and I do have one that's important for people to hear.